Today, we are welcoming our first speaker in this new series, South Asia Women in the Field. I'm Malini Roy, and I'm from the Fitzwilliam Museum, University of Cambridge Museums. We'll be speaking to Professor M.B. Rajani, whose research centers on the field of landscape archaeology, particularly on geospatial methodologies and environmental change. Professor Rajani is currently a visiting scholar at the MacDonald Institute for Archaeological Research, University of Cambridge, where she is collaborating with the Mapping Archaeological Heritage in South Asia project, called MAHSA in short. She is also a visiting fellow commoner at Trinity College, Cambridge. Professor Rajani is from India and is Associate Professor at the National Institute for Advanced Studies in Bangalore or Bengaluru. Her book, Patterns in Past Settlements, Geospatial Analysis of Imprints of Cultural Heritage on Landscapes, is a key resource in this emerging interdisciplinary field of knowledge which spans science, technology, and the arts and humanities. Today I'm going to ask Professor Rajani a few questions about her groundbreaking work in conserving archaeological history and heritage. And after my questions, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Vaneshree Vidyarthi, who is a member of the team of Mapping Archaeological Heritage in South Asia and is also a PhD student at the University of Cambridge at Cornwall and Keyes College. So let's move on to our first question. Professor Rajani, can you tell us what geospatial analysis of data in the field of archaeology actually means, and how this is changing the discipline of archaeology and how we understand the historical landscape? What methods does it employ?
Thank you, Malini. Archaeology traditionally has meant going to the field, exploring, excavating, and analyzing material that has been excavated. But the landscape as a large is also an object that has been modified by human beings. Human beings, for settling, have made dams, water bodies, canals, and therefore have altered the landscapes. And these changes can be better analyzed when you visualize landscape at a larger scale, maybe from aerial platforms or space platform. So using technologies such as remote sensing, GIS, GPS together forms this large umbrella of technologies called geospatial technologies. So it is not only seeing specific locations, but it is about looking at landscapes at large. And it's not seeing landscape only as it looks today, but also looking at historical aerial and satellite imagery or historical maps which shows how landscape was decades ago or centuries ago, and to learn from them how the landscape has been changing, and therefore also understand what has happened to the landscape from the time of period that we are studying in archaeology till now, and how this landscape has been viewed by various historians in the past and recorded, and how we see it today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Professor Rajani. I think it may not be unfair to say that a lot of us lay people have this stereotypical image of archaeologists that's very much based upon Indiana Jones. There's this white male explorer who goes around solving ancient mysteries in all kinds of remote and exotic locales. Now, it's true that some of us lay people are a bit more informed, and we think that archaeologists go on digs in distant lands. But what I would like to ask you is how do you think your work as a woman archaeologist who's using geospatial methods kind of changes or alters these stereotypes? Could you tell us something about your personal aspirations and maybe your struggles in South Asian academic life? What prospects would you say that something like geospatial analysis opens up, in terms of maybe discovering and exploring new archaeological sites and excavations?
Yes. Once I was asked this question, how do you feel like being the woman Indiana Jones? And I must say, till then, I didn't really know who Indiana Jones was. So today's archaeology, or the kind of archaeology we do in our group, is very much different from Indiana Jones. If you watch his movies, you will see him crawling into some cave and then finding something and say, this is something or other. Today, discoveries are done at our computer table, looking at some images, and that's where something sparks about this is what happened, and we may follow it up with field work and other kind of archival work, but where we have this light bulb occasion is not in these distant places, but it is with data on our screen. So in that way, the discovery, or the sense of discovery and the place of discovery is not only in remote spaces and made by white male archaeologists, if you want to put it that way, but it is something everyone can do. And it's not only that, compared to even what remote sensing or access to remote sensing data 20 years ago was. Today, a lot of data is made accessible online, and therefore a skilled or a trained analyst can sit back at home or at lab and make some discoveries. And regarding the gender aspect here, I must say in my group, I have had lots of women analysts. Sometimes it has been even 8 out of 10 have been women, but it hasn't been a conscious effort to encourage women. It's happened organically. And I also want to say that in India, this field did not begin as an initiative from archaeologists. It was space scientists. It was scientists from Indian Space Research Organization in the 80s first who noticed the paleo channels of what is called the river Saraswati and mapped them. And later, Dr. K. Kasturirangan, who is my mentor, who was formerly chairman of Indian Space Research Organization, was keen in developing this application which is for humanities. So he was keen in seeing how space products and space technology can apply to humanities. And this is how it began. And at that time, there were no set paths on who works in this field. It was scientific curiosity. It was open to anybody who's interested. And I happened to be lucky in being at that space when this idea was developing, and I got sucked into it. And I've had a fascinating journey since then. I feel it's not only gendered biases, but it are many other kind of biases. One example that comes to my mind, somebody who worked with me recently was very good as an image analyst. She, in fact, I think had something which is called pareidolia, where you can see patterns where not everybody can see. It is not a disease. It is a sort of ability of some people to be able to see visual patterns better than others. And she was very good at it. And she was also very good at archival work and putting together geographical references from records and putting together from images. But she had immense motion sickness. So traveling by road was a torture. I went with her for one trip, and I really felt sorry about putting her through this. It's not that I forced her, but she really wanted to do, but it was a torture for her. But if you see the outputs that she has produced, it just shows how much she was able to achieve from her desk in spite of her problems of motion sickness. So this just shows this technology, or this gamut of technologies makes it available for us to overcome not only gendered biases or stereotypes, but also many other kind of barriers, maybe health, maybe domestic, maybe gender. So in that way, it opens up the field for many different kinds of people. It is not only archaeologists, but now people from many different fields can sort of have a entry into getting into the conversations or debates in archaeology.
Wonderful. You just mentioned seeing the ability to see visual patterns, and I'd like to take you up on that. How do you think that something like geospatial analysis sort of works, in tandem with like things like of historical records, say visual and literary sources like, early maps, descriptions and travel writing, maybe paintings and sculptures that kind of describe or depict archaeological sites?
Yes, that's a very interesting question. Something that comes straight to my mind is records of, say, coastlines or historical records or eyewitness records of people who have visited coastline. Very often, when a traveler records about, let's say, Konark temple, says that this temple was on the coast. And today, if you go, you won't see Konark on the coast. It's 3 kilometers inland. Here at least the temple was known then and now. There is no problems in identification. But there are other cases where we don't know where a particular temple existed. So if an archaeologist who has looked at these historical records go to the site, they will find the coastline and then look for the temple. That has been the way we look at records. But actually, what we should be doing is find the temple and look for coastline there, because coastline keeps changing. The temple's location doesn't necessarily change. So in this way, if we have historical records, we need to understand the certainty of location of various factors that is being recorded. The temple and the coast. Coast can change, but temple can't change. So, and therefore, we need to look at how a traveler, when he visited the site, how it would have been visible. So in that way, one of the sites that I have been personally involved in working is Mahabalipuram. Mahabalipuram has been historically known as Seven Pagodas. As the name suggests, it is a European name. So European maritime travelers, when they sailed past Mahabalipuram historically, they could see 7 monuments standing on the coast. But even as early as 18th century, we couldn't see these 7 monuments. So this had given rise to this myth that what was the 7 pagodas of Mahabalipuram. As part of my research, I found a portolan chart which was in Royal Geographical Society archives, which marks coastlines. Portolan charts are not like maps today, but they are maritime maps. It marks coastline and it marks some visible features along the coast. This particular portolan chart marked 7 monuments, or rather 7 freestanding monuments, and each one of them had very distinctive shape. One had a flat roof, one had double roof, or rather double pointed roof, and 3 had single pointed roof, and so on. And it had a very different shape coastline from what we see today. I was able to use this map and compare it with more recent satellite imagery. I'm saying recent because I did this work 10 years ago and not now. And also using satellite imagery, different kinds of satellite imagery, I was able to identify the shape of the coastline marked in the old map. With this, I was able to also say that the 7 pagodas that were standing on the coast as marked in the 17th century map were not something that is currently submerged, but they are currently standing far inland, and this shoreline itself has receded from then to now. If we didn't have this map, the popular narrative is that one shore temple is standing on the shore still and the remaining 6 are underwater. because that's what we think happens to something on the shore. What we don't think is the shore can also move in the other direction. So using old maps and views of the coast in the form of paintings, these kind of, not only coast, it could be anywhere, views, these kind of mysteries can be solved.
Great. So this actually kind of makes me curious about the geographical locations of the sites you have maybe worked on throughout your career. And would you say maybe that the conservation of archaeological heritage may actually come into conflict with, say, projects of urbanization, projects of agricultural development, economic development, particularly the way that these things are happening in the global south? How would, say, authorities who are working on the conservation of archaeological heritage then work in public policy with urban developers and therefore ensure that heritage protection remains part of the actual decision making process?
Yes, when I started working in this field, we didn't even know what would be a good site to work on because I came from the technology side. My mentors were people who built satellites and people who manage satellites. So the research problem was how to put images of this satellite for to use for archaeology. So it was not let's study Harappa or Mohenjo-daro. It was how to put to use these images produced by the satellite. So we were wondering which site would be the best site to work. And we had a discussion on this where we had invited some 20 archaeologists, 20 remote sensing scientists. And at the end of this meeting, we came up with 200 ideas. So it just showed that nobody knew which would be best site, and probably there wasn't something called best site. As we later understood, I think every site deserves to be studied using these technologies. So we started with looking at Bangalore because that's where I was, and I thought maybe I will start so that I can go to the field if necessary whenever I want. And we looked at other sites in South Karnataka, spread to Mahabalipuram, and then my later projects involved looking at more of the coast sites and later also Bihar. So yes, I have looked at quite a range of sites which are in a range of urban environment. Sites like in Bangalore, which is in the midst of a bustling and burgeoning urban city, sites in Delhi, as well as sites in more rural area which are threatened by urbanization, and other forms of development such as building of wide roads, canals, and so on. Yes, this is a problem, and there is an issue as far as the threat to archaeological sites are concerned. And in India, the threat comes from development rather than from looting. Probably there is looting also, but a larger problem is development. And roads are planned, railway lines are planned, urban expansions are planned without considering archaeology. As an archaeologist or as a heritage enthusiast, it is easy for me to say that planning is done without considering archaeology, but I should understand how would they consider it? We don't have a proper material, documented material of what is to be protected. We do have ASI sites, but ASI sites are not all the sites that we have, and therefore the MAHSA project here in Cambridge and the projects that I deal with at NIAS are documenting these sites digitally, and we are producing databases which we want to make it available to public. And the hope is these authorities who are involved in development will have properly researched content which they can depend on and include it in development strategies for the future.
Thank you, Professor Rajani. So, as far as I get it, there is a real need for documenting heritage in the Indian context. From this, I would like to lead on to another question. So, do you think that if one has to conserve archaeological heritage, we also need to think about crossing national borders? And, how do you think crossing national borders might impact more global issues of, say, like climate change, sustainability?
Yes, our historical sites and settlements and civilizations didn't depend or didn't anticipate the political borders we have today. The Indus Valley civilization or Harappan civilization cuts across India and Pakistan, and the waterworks of these and subsequent settlements cuts across India and Pakistan. We have other sites like Bithargarh in Bangladesh, whose fort is in Bangladesh, but the moat is in India. So this just shows how archaeology flows in between or across national or international borders. And I think to deal with these sites, it is important to have an integrated approach, and it is important to collaborate. It doesn't make sense if I'm looking at a landscape till the edge of the border when I'm talking about climate or environmental changes, and if I can't look across the border.
Wonderful. So, if we are looking at more international collaborations, would you have any advice for, say, young archaeologists across the globe who are maybe like just starting out in the field?
Yes, I think be prepared to take up challenging ideas. For instance, using geospatial technology doesn't stop me from looking at sites in Bangladesh or Tibet, which I have done, or Pakistan. So we do get a lot of understanding of a landscape without going to landscape. So it is geospatial technology already starts to blur that problem which borders bring.
Great. Landscape seems to be an important term here. Would you mind maybe telling us a few stories about the people and the communities on landscapes and, say, field sites you've worked in? And maybe like something about the human activities or their traces from the past that have kind of maybe inspired you or led you to think in like new directions with your work?
Yes, I have some very interesting encounters when I go to field work. But one of the experience that I was very thrilling to me, for instance, was I had noticed a large square-shaped mound north of Nalanda. On this mound, I say large because it was 400 meters by 400 meters, and on top of this mound was a large settlement, large village. So I wanted to go on the ground and see if there is any evidence that there is a large buried monastery under this mound. So I did explore the areas where I saw there was no settlement and I couldn't find anything. Then I went into the village and spoke to some people and asked them, have you seen an exposed wall section or bricks? And there was one farmer who said, yes, in my land some bricks came up last year when I was clearing it up for replenishing soil as the land was not being productive. This man then offered to take me to his land, but as he took me, I had my GPS and I was looking at the screen, and we approached slowly to the spot, to the very spot or the line that was showing the border of this mound. And we stopped over there, and I couldn't believe my eyes that this was the edge of the mound I noticed in the image. And he took me to a corner of his probably about an acre large plot, showing me a trench which was dug by ASI after he had reported the bricks.
Right.
So what happened was that since the site was not productive, he dug up about 4-5 feet of soil to replenish the soil and ran into bricks. He reported this to ASI, and ASI dug a trench and found a very neat structure or the wall of a what looked like walls of other monastery nearby, say Nalanda, and then they
Incredible.
brought a stay order to do any activity on that land. For me, it was a verification of my discovery without me having to spend time and effort in doing it. So it was really thrilling for me, and this is one of many such examples as we go on field.
Wow, so we really have to listen to the wisdom of the people.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Professor Rajani, for provoking insights on what is definitely appears to be a rapidly growing new field of knowledge. Geospatial analysis definitely appears to be changing the very ways in which we think about archaeological history and heritage, like on an international level. Now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Vaneshree Vidyarthi. Vaneshree, would you like to take over?
Thank you, Malini. Hi, Rajani. Thank you so much for coming and speaking to us both about your work. I just wanted to start with that it's been a pleasure working with you, you know, right next to me in the MAHSA office really for the last 3 months, and your presence has really enhanced our office atmosphere. And it's a shame to know you're leaving us so soon and you'll really be missed. Would you like to tell us a bit about your initial journey into archaeology and into this field? I mean, was this something you were always interested in, or did you find your interest along, your undergraduate studies or your later master studies?
And even I find it very sad that I'm towards the end of my stint here, and it's been a great pleasure to work with all of you. And thank you for this wonderful question. This is part of the story I don't often get to say. I was in the UK doing a master's on studying textiles as depicted on East India Company paintings. So I was studying what caste wore what kind of clothing and textile and so on. So I finished this master's. And I was here to do that master's because of the guidance I got from Dr. John Marr, who's an Indologist and had worked in SOAS for many years. And by the time I met him, he had retired. But with his help and guidance, I came to do this work. As you know, in India, we don't even think sometimes such research is possible.
Yeah.
Having said that, I must say it is changing, and it's very different from what it was 25 years ago. So I was here and I was finishing my master's, and I went back to India. I took up a research assistant position at NIAS under Dr. Sharada Srinivasan, who was working on a book on wood steel at that time. And it was at that time Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan became the director of NIAS, and he was interested in starting a project on how space technology can be applied to humanities and archaeology specifically, and invited people who were remotely connected to this field. He said that we don't have a tailor-made education program which will feed into this, so we have to find people who will be interested. So I was at that place at that time, and was spoken about this, and I thought, let me jump into it. So it was not a thing that I had thought of before that, because you would have wondered how would anybody think of an impossible task. So it was somebody like Dr. Kasturi Rangan who could have made it possible. It was quite hard at the beginning because I hadn't done mathematics or physics after school, and I was sent to ISRO for training, and it was quite overwhelming, but it was very fascinating. And I've had some very good mentors and colleagues in ISRO whom I'm still in touch with, and I continue to work. And it was not something I planned, but it came my way, and I'm very happy that I was not scared and I took it up.
Thank you for that story. It's amazing. It's almost as if the field chose you.
Well, maybe we chose each other.
Yeah. And it's obviously a successful partnership.
Yes, it has been wonderful.
You mentioned Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan right now and also early on in the podcast. And I know he's an accomplished space scientist, but of course he was also your supervisor. So you had a very close relationship with him. And of course, sadly, he also very, very recently passed away. And we're all sorry to hear about that. But I wanted to ask you, what was his impact like, and what was your relationship with him? Did he influence your work, and did he impact your experience, your initial experience?
Oh, it was wonderful. To begin with, I didn't get much time from him. He said that, he said, I'm busy, but I can arrange for you to have be trained in ISRO. You should be prepared to be independent. So he began with that. And later, about a year after that, he was supposed to edit a volume on Indian space program. He got me to assist him on that, and he made me speak to people who were writing articles for this, and the people who were writing articles for this were directors of Space Application Center or centers that build rockets and so on. So he said, I think it's important for you to get a overall feeling of how space program works. So his style was in that way very different. And he was very patient. Some days it would be evening 8 o'clock that I would get 5 minutes of time. But if I had something to show him, he was always interested and thrilled to see. One incident that strikes me was when I had first noticed in an old map of Bangalore. I had seen the fortification and citadel, and I thought, can I see their impressions in today's satellite imagery? By today, I mean 2005. And at that time, we didn't have Google Earth yet. And the only satellite image that I had access to was an calendar that ISRO had brought out of with images of various cities of India. And that had Bangalore for February, and we were already in October, but I still had February hanging on my wall with this map, and I was trying to see this comparison. And I, after 3 weeks, saw it, especially when I dropped the calendar on the floor and it slightly twisted. But I had nobody else to go and show. To see whether this is something that's interesting. So I went to his office with the calendar in my hand and the map in the other hand. I said, I think I'm seeing some patterns. And he very, very patiently let me explain to him. And when he saw what I saw, he just stood up and he said, Rajani, this is discovery. You must take this up. You must do some research on this, do your PhD in this. So I said, I haven't done maths and physics after school. It's okay, you can pick that up on your way. So that was very interesting that a physicist like him could say, it's okay if you don't know physics and maths, you can pick it up and so on. So this is one of many, many very interesting experiences. I spoke about Mahabalipuram earlier. So I had seen this map of Mahabalipuram in Royal Geographical Society archives when I was looking for maps on Bangalore. So I had just I didn't know whether I would pick up Mahabalipuram in future, but this idea of the coastline being probably different and that the map marks 7 monuments struck me, and I knew of this mystery of Mahabalipuram, 7 pagodas. So I just made a rough sketch in my notes and I went back home. About a year passed, and then Google Earth came up with images of the coast, and I saw that Mahabalipuram's coast was very different from that map. And I went back to him and I told him, I need a software which we can do 3D animations with, and that software cost a few lakhs. He said, why you want? I said, I want to show that this sketch is reproducible with geospatial technologies. He saw the sketch and he knew it was my sketch, and he asked, you mean to say this is really there somewhere? So I was like, yes, I don't think I'm imagining. I drew it from a map in Royal Geographical Society archives. And he arranged for me within a day or two to get that software.
Wow.
And this really made me sort of, his support was great in that way. As far as the technology or the data with space program and so on is concerned. And I've had some wonderful collaborators among scientists. Even to today, we are trying to put up this database that we have created on Bhuvan's website. And they have been very welcoming for our data, because as you know, when we do research in academia, we do with projects. And as academic institutions don't have perpetual access to funds to maintain these databases. So we're very fortunate to have that collaboration.
Yeah, thank you. It sounds like he was very, very supportive, and he
Yes, he
obviously
was. He
believed
was.
in your discoveries and what you found,
Yes.
which is very good. And I mean, you've been on the NIS campus as a student, and now, of course, you are a supervisor yourself. And from 2005, we are looking at 20 years of you being on this campus and also other campuses in India in various capacities. So I guess my next question is that what are some of the major changes you've seen in Indian campuses in the field, but also in the social dynamics or in academia in general over the last 20 years?
Yes, something that I faced as a barrier in the beginning when I started my PhD. I had a supervisor who was physicist, and I had a kind of humanities background, not even an archaeologist. So universities found it strange to have a guide in physics department, a student in archaeology department, and so that was a barrier. But I find more recently that has become more possible, because there are so many more new institutions that have come up in the last 20 years, the ICERs or the other private universities that have come up, and most of them have a tagline of being interdisciplinary, and at least encouraging interdisciplinarity for research. Although I don't say that always you have groundbreaking research happening everywhere, but I think it is important to give that ambience in for it to happen. So I think there is a large change happening in India, and especially with the education policy, which is also sort of the new education policy has also emphasized the importance of lateral shift and multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary interests, and so on. And I think I wouldn't really like to comment on what has changed. I think we are still changing.
Yes, even in the last few years, since my time studying in India, I think there's been quick changes. I also wanted to ask, in the office, we've been lucky enough to spend some time with your young daughter, who also joins you and who is in Cambridge with you here. And I wanted to ask, like, in academia or in your career, how do you find that balance? Basically, do you find that the institutions are supportive? Do you think you're adequately supported to both have a thriving family life and a very good career? Or are there changes you would like to see in the future? And is there any advice you have?
I have been very lucky, both with my family and my institution, and also the institution we are sending our daughter for schooling too. So she goes to an alternate school. So the schooling is very much freer than many other schools. And something that is an advantage for me, I don't have to sit for hours to get her homework done and so on. But that's only one of the many advantages. So I have been very lucky with my husband, my family, who've been very encouraging. If I have to travel, we manage. By the way, my husband and I share a Google Calendar called Parenting, and we keep marking off times and dates that I have to travel or he has to travel, and we make sure that one of us are not traveling and are available for our daughter. So that is one of the ways. The institution has been good. I take my daughter to my office when she has holidays or I don't have a place to leave her. She has come to MAHSA
Yes.
office, which has been wonderful for her and for me.
And for us.
Yes. So so I don't think it is one thing, but it is many things that has happened well, and I think giving that freedom will encourage more women to remain in the field. The problem is not women coming into the field. If we see the statistics in India, the number of women doing graduation, doing degree or PhD is quite good. The problem is retaining them in research is a problem. So I think government also is doing a lot of schemes to bring back women after a break and things like that. But it is just not schemes. I think it is also the ambience and the environment which is very important.
Yes, completely. And it's nice to see you have, a mix of different kinds of support, which has, been very good. And yes, I wanted to ask a very simple question, is that what is the favorite thing about your work?
It's very hard to say what is the favorite. I think being able to it is like actually like a detective arriving at a crime spot. Of course, after the crime has happened. So it is rather like that. So you are suddenly told about something that happened somewhere, or you read about something that happened somewhere, and you look at an image, and then you look at records. Somebody had visited that place in 15th century, somebody had visited that place in 18th century, somebody had dug up that place in 19th century, and then you are here with all this data, and you have these images, and you have some maps. And I think it is that ability to that geospatial technology brings, that you can actually collate all these information that have a geographical aspect in that, and then you are able to say something that was not obvious to any of the others who were involved historically, because they don't have as much data as me, and they don't have the tools that I have today. So I think it is that joy you get when if you have a 100-piece or 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and you're struggling to put a few together, and suddenly something happens and several pieces come together. So I think it is that here is another source of data and another perspective which is able to put ideas that seemed scattered, but once you look at it like this, then they start falling into place. And it is that realization with every site. When you have that realization, it's really fascinating.
That's such a good analogy of the jigsaw puzzle for archaeology, because it's truly, it's amazing when you find the sort of missing link.
Yeah.
Well, I just have a final question for you now. Do you have a dream project or a dream study? So if, research funding and permits were no bar, is there something you would really like to do? Or you also just in general, what are some future directions you would like your work to go in, or what you'd like to work on?
Well, there are so many very interesting projects one can work on. One of the topics that has been in my mind and would like to explore more is trying to identify Muziris, for instance. So, and trying to identify Pataliputra, for instance, the contours of. So, in that way, there are many historical questions. I don't really say it is impossible to explore. Sometimes you may not find data for all of them. So there are many such things. But what I really feel would be a dream come true if it happens is, because what we produce is not simply a historical information, right? Yes, of course, it's a historical information, so we understand our history better, but it is also some data about what we do with that, because our research finds locations and says something is still here or something is not here. So my dream come true would be more when the work is used for making better planning or making more inclusive planning, and that is something that's not in my hands and not me being able to realize that dream. I think that dream will eventually realize when the work itself make impact on domains that is beyond our projects.
Thank you so much. Yes, having that sort of application to actual heritage and culture in India would be amazing. Thank you very much. It's been such a pleasure working with you and hearing your thoughts today.
Thank you. It's been great to talk to both of you, and thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you, Professor Rajani. Thank you, Vaneshree. Another person who actually deserves a big round of applause here and who's been with us in the studio is Daisy Brunt, who has been the silent light in the background. Daisy is at MAHSA and is also starting a PhD in on the ancient civilization of Mesopotamia. Great. So thank you to all of you. And I hope that our listeners have enjoyed hearing us. And to our listeners, I'd also like to signal that we'd like to continue this podcast series, South Asia Women in the Field, in the near future with similar introductions to the research topics of members of Mapping Archaeological Heritage in South Asia, MAHSA. So do keep a lookout for our exciting lineup of speakers. And thank you for tuning in today. Bye.